Actually, I did. Hit 2 is a very, much more fast paced. You want to achieve such moments in the auditorium as a filmmaker. I think the most important thing is to create lovable characters, and we're all following what Marvel had created.
Hi, Sailesh.
Hi, Sangeetha garu. Hi.
Thank you so much for making time for this conversation, because I know you've been really busy preparing for your next film, traveling and doing the pre-production work and all that. But despite that, when I called you and pitched this idea, you were like game for this.
No, pleasure is all mine.
Now it's been a couple of months, right, after Hit 2 released.
Right, yeah.
So have you had the chance to step back a little bit, take stock of the film from an objective point of view and see what worked for you and what you think as a director that you could have done something better?
Actually, I did. I did do that. I think it's an exercise that a lot of people do. Like after a few months, ఒకసారి ఒక 4 అడుగులు వెనక్కి వేసుకొని చూస్తే ఒక చిన్న బర్డ్స్ ఐ వ్యూ వస్తుంది కదా. మెయిన్లీ ఓటీటీలో రిలీజ్ అయిన తర్వాత కీప్ వాచింగ్ సెగ్మెంట్స్ ఆఫ్ ఇట్. త్రూఅవుట్ మొత్తం ఫిల్మ్ చూసే టైం దొరకలేదు, కానీ పార్ట్స్ ఆఫ్ ఇట్ ఐ కీప్ గోయింగ్ బ్యాక్ అండ్ వాచింగ్ పార్ట్స్ ఆఫ్. ఎందుకంటే దెర్ ఆర్ ఫ్యూ పార్ట్స్ వేర్ ఐ ఫెల్ట్ నేను ఇంకా బెటర్గా చేసి ఉండొచ్చేమో అని నాకు థియేటర్లో చూసిన పార్ట్స్ ఉంటాయి. అది చూసినప్పుడు ఎట్లా ఇంప్రూవ్ చేసుకుని ఉండొచ్చు అన్న థాట్ ప్రాసెస్ రన్ చేయడానికి.
Okay. So would you like to share anything? ఏ పార్ట్స్ మీకు అలా అనిపించింది అనేసి?
I don't know, the first 20 minutes of the film I thought that maybe ఏమన్నా ఇంకా బెటర్గా ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ చేసి ఉండొచ్చేమో అని నాకు జస్ట్ ఒక 2 days బ్యాక్ అనిపించింది. ఐ మీన్ పీపుల్ లైక్ డెడ్ అండ్ ఆల్ దట్, బట్ దిస్ ఇస్ మీ యాజ్ అ ఫిల్మ్ మేకర్ ఫీలింగ్ ఐ కుడ్ హావ్ డన్ బెటర్. వన్స్ ఆ క్రైమ్ స్టార్ట్ అయ్యేంత వరకు ఉన్న పార్ట్ ఉంది కదా, అది కొద్దిగా చిన్న బ్రీజీగా బాగుండింది థియేటర్లో చూడడానికి, బట్ ఇంకేమన్నా చేసి ఉండొచ్చేమో అని అనిపించింది 2 days బ్యాక్. దిస్ ఇస్ జస్ట్ మీ letting the thought out, but yeah, I'm proud of the film. I'm super happy with the film, but I think ఇంకొక 4 సార్లు చూస్తే ఖచ్చితంగా ఇంకో 4 అనిపిస్తుంది అట్లానే. That's how. Yeah.
See, the feedback that you've been receiving for the film, first after the theatrical release, adainanka OTT lo a lot of more people saw it, and then some people have liked both Hit 1 and Hit 2. Some people said no, we liked Hit 1 better. So what's the different kind of reactions that you've been receiving consistently in the last 3-4 months?
See, what I understood unanimously, majority of the people have liked Hit 2.
Okay.
It's for sure. But కానీ Hit 1 ని Hit 2 ని కంపేర్ చేయడం కూడా అంత ఫేర్ కాదేమో అని నా ఫీలింగ్. బికాజ్ రెండు చూస్తే రెండు థ్రిల్లర్స్ గ్రామరే చాలా డిఫరెంట్ ఉంటుంది. హిట్ 1 వాజ్ అ వెరీ సస్పెక్ట్ బేస్డ్ స్లో బర్నర్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ అ ఫిల్మ్. Hit 2 is a very much more fast paced, and also it's not a suspect play. It's peeling the layers of a crime. So play ne different ఉంటుంది. People who like fast paced thrillers felt that Hit 2 is a better film. And also Hit 2 lo meeru చూస్తే the scale of it, the stakes of it, and it's a little more personal than Hit 1, so taking this, one segment of people keep telling me that Hit 2 is a way better film than Hit 1, and I would personally like to believe Hit 2 is a better film than Hit 1, because that's how, as a graph, ఒక ఫిల్మ్ మేకర్ గ్రాఫ్గా చూస్తే ఐఎమ్ గోయింగ్ ఇన్ ద రైట్ డైరెక్షన్ కదా. ఐ బిలీవ్ Hit 2, I expressed better in Hit 2 and I feel now. As a filmmaker, I felt that the articulation and communication that happened in Hit 2, the emotions that I conveyed in Hit 2 were much more clearer.
See, at the time that you conceptualized this entire Hit series, and of course you revealed it only during Hit 2 that you plan to make it like a Hit universe. Right. And take it forward, right? So there'll be crossovers between the different protagonists. At the time of writing, this would have been still a very new concept as far as Indian cinema is concerned. Right. But by the time Hit 2 released itself, we've had Vikram and Kaidi crossover, and Lokesh is doing his own universe in Tamil, and Yash Raj Cinema is having its spy universe. Rohit Shetty has his own cop universe, and now Prashant Verma in Telugu, he has superhero franchisee universe as such. How do you look at this kind of a scenario right now in Indian cinema?
I'm sure even Lokesh would have conceptualized it long back, because these kind of things you need a lot of planning to. ఒకటి తీసేసిన తర్వాత జస్ట్ ఏదో కలపాలని కలిపితే అది చాలా సూపర్ఫిషియల్గానే అనిపిస్తుంది. సో దట్ నీడ్, ఐఎమ్ షూర్ ఆల్ దీస్ పీపుల్ హూ యూ మెన్షన్ నౌ, దే మస్ట్ హావ్ ప్లాన్డ్ ఇట్ 6-7 years ahead of time only.
Okay.
I would like to believe that. Okay. So the thought process started, I guess, mainly the mother of all the universes ante manaki obviously Marvel, that was what educated us about how the highs will be when there are crossovers and when there are cameos of characters that come from different films. So I think that was the thing when we చూస్తున్నప్పుడు చిన్న high auditorium లో ఒక sudden burst of energy అవుతుంది కదా. You want to achieve such moments in the auditorium as a filmmaker, and I think creating a universe is a nice way to do it. That's where it started, that are cops to cheste ela untadi, like realistic cops who are like, you know, who does their job in a very mundane way, very procedural angle నుంచి చేసే cops వాళ్ళు క్రాస్ ఓవర్స్ అయితే ఎలా ఉంటుంది అన్న థాట్ నుంచి స్టార్ట్ అయింది. సో ఇట్ వాజ్ అ నైస్ ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్. ఫస్ట్ అసలు క్రైమ్ ఏంటి, కథలు ఏంటి అని అనుకోవడం కంటే ముందు క్యారెక్టరైజేషన్స్ అండ్ హౌ దే విల్, విచ్ మూవీ విచ్ క్యారెక్టర్ విల్ క్రాస్ ఓవర్ అన్నది బ్లూ ప్రింట్ వేసుకొని స్టార్ట్ చేసింది అది. సో దట్స్ హౌ యునో విక్రమ్ రుద్రరాజు's appearance in KD's case and stuff like that. సో మెల్లిమెల్లిగా క్రాస్ ఓవర్స్ పెరుగుతాయి ముందుకెళ్ళే కొద్ది. దట్స్ హౌ ఐ ఎన్విజన్డ్ ఇట్, దట్ దోస్ the whistle inducing moments in the auditorium will be more as you keep going in 3 and 4 and
okay. So as and when you start writing in the sense when you complete the entire script of say hit 3 and hit 4, the writing has to be really engaging, isn't it? Because now the novelty factor of introducing these crossovers is something which all these filmmakers who have these universes will be doing. So do you see it as like a fresh challenge to push yourself and see how best you can write, or how interesting can you make it for people?
I think ఇలా 10 యూనివర్స్లో వచ్చినా the high will not be diluted because it all depends on which characters are crossing over కదా. So I think the most important thing is to create lovable characters, అంటే characters that you want to root for, that the characters that you want to take home. Vikram's character was really loved because of his past trauma, and he's a guy who's trying to push through his trauma and achieve something in his life. So like hit 1 release అయినప్పుడు Vikram Rudraraju అన్న character ni people owned it. They took the character home, they spoke about it at home and all. So అలాంటి character కనిపించినప్పుడు ఒక హై వస్తుంది, right? If I had created the same impact with KD's character, there will be a high when he appears in another film as well. So I think the concept of universe is not building a universe. I don't think it will get diluted. It's about what are the characters you are building, and in what circumstances these characters are crossing over into other films is what will decide how impactful that moment is. So if you do that right, I don't think you need to worry about how novel the concept of building a universe is, because novelty guరించి మాట్లాడితే అది ఎప్పుడో అయిపోయింది. We're all following what Marvel had created at one point in time. So yeah.
Okay. So both hit 1 and hit 2 were your films in terms of the way you wrote it and the way you narrated it. It's a director driven film, with very strong characters and good plots and so on and so forth. As the universe gets bigger and bigger stars step into it, what's the kind of writing methodology that you will follow? Will you kind of insulate yourself from all the noise that is surrounding in terms of expectations and say, no, let me write a good one and then the star will fit into it? Or are you going to factor in a few more things and then start writing it?
The challenge is to have a balance of both. I feel because ఇది నేను కాన్సెప్ట్ నేను అనుకున్నప్పుడే this was one thing that I had written down, because with the success of each film, definitely the star cast who will be involved in the film also will be of will come in with certain expectations from their fans. It's something that you cannot escape. Being a filmmaker, you have to cater to that. At the same time, I should also not forget, why did the audience actually start loving the hit universe? Because of the procedural angle of it, because of the detailing that I have, because of the real behavior of my characters. So ee grammar patkoni how do I induce the satisfying moments for the fans is something that is a balance that I'm trying to strike. And of course I have to insulate myself from all the noise, because if you open Twitter, you'll see demands. So ఇది ఉండాలన్నా ఇది ఉండాలి అని చాలా క్లియర్గా చెప్పేస్తా.
One tweet I remember very clearly, and which you kind of quote tweeted it. I think you said, "Maavadu kuchunte oka elevation undali, nirchunte oka elevation undali." So do you just look at it and have a good laugh? And
it's a good laugh because they all love their stars so much. It's such a star-driven industry. వీళ్ళందరికీ that's what is the high for them, right? So that's how much we love our stars and have a good laugh at it. But again, we have to be extremely responsible, because if Nani agreed to be a part of Hit 3, I mean, I'm sure and I'm very confident that he's smart enough that he believed that I will strike that balance.
Right.
అది ఒక మసాలా కాప్ సినిమా చేయాలి అంటే చేయడానికి చాలా మంది ఉన్నారు కదా. Why would he will be playing a cop for the first time in his career, and to give me that opportunity, I believe the man also would have believed that Sailesh will crack something which is authentic in the universe he's creating అనుకుంటేనే ఇచ్చి ఉంటాడు కదా. So I need to stand up to that and deliver. So that's a huge challenge, huge responsibility. So scale పెద్దగా ఉంటుంది, ఈవెంట్స్ విల్ బి లాట్ ఆఫ్ థింగ్స్ విల్ బి అట్ స్టేక్, బట్ డెఫినెట్లీ హిట్ యూనివర్స్ కున్న గ్రామర్ని అయితే వదిలిపెట్టను. But it will be larger than life. It will be, as we keep going forward, it will be larger than life. Okay, for sure. Okay. Yeah.
You know, the other thing which I just remembered, but I really want to ask you, is that when you talk about the feedback that you got for Hit 2, once more people got to watch it, what is the feedback that you got from women? You know why I'm asking this, because the plot and the backstory of the antagonist and all that, how did people react?
Surprisingly, I thought that there will be at least a segment of women backlash untademo naku anukunna gaani surprisingly it was not there.
Okay.
So I think I did a good job in not putting a male lens on it, or per se to be biased on one side. లేకుండా నేను ఆబ్జెక్టివ్గా చెప్పేసా కథ చెప్పాల్సింది. దట్స్ వై డిడ్ నాట్ హర్క్ ఎనీబడి ఆఫ్ అని ఐ స్ట్రాంగ్లీ బిలీవ్, బికాస్ ఐ యాక్చువల్లీ వాజ్ ఎక్స్పెక్టింగ్ అ లిటిల్ బిట్ ఆఫ్ బ్యాక్లాష్ ఫ్రమ్ one segment of women, but didn't happen, which is good. Because I told you when we did the other interview for Hindu also, I was telling I always run it through some women in my life.
Yeah. Your wife, and then Prashanthi Tipranini as well. Yeah.
So many people. I do run it through them just to see if it is offensive in any way. Because I think being a male, I don't have the luxury of understanding a woman's perspective fully. Okay. If I tell that it's a lie, because nobody can understand a woman, like same way for them also, like they can't understand a male's perspective fully. Yeah. So we need to rely on somebody whom we trust to understand, what's the feeling that's being evoked inside them. So I did that exercise and I felt that it worked well for me.
But your writing process per se is like a solo process, right? You complete writing and only then you share it with your close people and your ADs, and then you take feedback.
After my first draft is done, which I feel is worth sharing, which includes the dialogue, action, everything, which is a fully bound screenplay, I narrate that to my close people. Yeah.
And there's also, I think, a lot of diligent homework that goes into the construction of the world, the crime movies that we've seen until now, and the characters as well. Because remember, you said that you have like a notebook or a diary where you just note down anything interesting that you come across. It could be an interesting personality trait, a conversation, or a news clipping, or a very comic line. And do you still manage to do that?
I still do that. Religiously, I do that.
Okay.
May not be a book, I may not be carrying a book everywhere, but I have like a bunch of notes on my phone. And if somebody cracks a really good joke, before even enjoying it, I make a note of it. So same thing with even like newspapers as well. Like when I keep reading newspapers, lifestyle segments, and so many crime segments, or if something seems interesting, I always make a note of it, because you never know where it might. And this is my favorite pastime, is just to go back and read my notes. Okay. Because I forget sometimes when I write it, I don't remember what notes I've made. So I go back and read my notes. It's like huge amount of notes in my phone that I keep reading.
When you're a new filmmaker, you come with a lot of very fresh observations, because you've been mingling with people across different age groups and different social strata. So you have these kind of observations which are noted down. As you get caught in working on one film, bringing it out, and then there's another pre-production, then you get into that work mode, would you miss the kind of time that you get to go out on the field, to go incognito and just be around and observe everything?
Definitely. I always felt it will be a problem, and I feel that it is happening right now, and I'm trying to break that. Okay. I'm speaking to a lot of like star actors as well, just to understand how do they actually crack this, like when they cannot go out and meet real people. Access to good stories are cut off, no? So how do we get it? I mean, I'm trying to crack. Good thing is, as of now, I've done only like 2 films, so people still don't recognize my face, which is a great thing. I would like to remain like that for however long possible, because I feel when you travel and you meet more people is when you get access to good stories. and it's been happening after Hit 2. All these ideas that I'm currently executing, they were all from my learnings from the last 1 decade. So I've still not ran out of material that I have learned over a period of time. Because when I was living in Sydney and even before that, I used to travel a lot. Like I've traveled the world a lot with my wife. So I've experienced a lot of cultures. I've met a lot of people. So there's so much material with me right now, which I have not seen explored in films, that I think for the next few films I won't have a problem. But if I stop traveling now, I think beyond that point I will struggle. So I'm trying to find the time to make sure that I'm still connected to people, that I'm traveling, I'm exploring cultures, I'm exploring food, stuff like that. So I think I'm doing a reasonably good job. So because the biggest challenge is to stay relevant, Sangeetha.
Right.
Because after a point of time, if you stop having access to people, you stop becoming relevant to your audience. Then it's gone. The world where you are living should not be drastically different from the people you are catering to. Then you won't understand their grammar. So I'm trying to bridge that gap now.
Okay. What was the kind of cinema that you watched while growing up?
I think I predominantly grew up on Kamal Hassan sir's films.
I guessed as much. I wanted you to say it, but
I used to fight with my dad to bring this VCR players for rent. Like I think it was 20 rupees per day or something. So when a lot of my school friends were bringing these rented video games to play at home, I used to bring VCR.
okay.
And I used to ask my dad to play some classics. So I grew up a lot on Kamal Hassan sir's film, and then of course Rajnikant sir's films were the ones where we used to go shout in the theater. And but somewhere I think Kamal Hassan sir had a huge influence on my film journey, I would say. Watching films nunchi, writing to making films, I think he's a big influence on me. Vishwanath Garu, because I still remember tripping on Sagar Sangamam when I was a kid. And people never used to understand why is he watching these kind of films, like, my mom and dad.
Okay.
So I think Kamal Hassan sir is the biggest influence on me.
Okay.
There are other people as well. Vishwanath Garu, Bharati Raja Garu. Also.
You grew up in Chennai.
Yeah, I grew up in Chennai. Yeah. I was in Chennai for about 13 years. First 13 years of my life I was in Chennai.
Okay.
Then I moved to Hyderabad in 1998. Yeah, 1998. I moved to Hyderabad.
Do you remember any significant films of Kamal Hassan, Rajnikant, or K. Vishwanath that really kind of subconsciously made such a huge impact on you that later you said, I want to become a storyteller?
Sagar Sangamam was the film for me, because all that the scenes when, like, I never knew that one can cry with the characters when we were watching it on the screen. I didn't know that a movie had that kind of capability to evoke that kind of a response in someone who's watching it. Okay. I discovered it for the very first time when that the invitation scene happens, when Jayaprada Garu shows, when he's showing the names and he sees his name and he starts breaking down. I actually cried, and I think that was the first time I actually realized that a movie can make you cry. That was fascinating for me. Okay. Then Heram was a huge influence on me. I started looking at films as an academic piece of work after Heram. Until then, it was entertainment for me. Okay. After Heram, somehow I started actually studying films, like what's production design. He's talking about why is the dialogue heard in a different way in this film. Then I discovered that they did something called sync sound. So then I discovered what's dubbing. So I started studying films from Heram. Like, I didn't know they were doing research to understand what kind of coins to be used in the film. Right. These kind of things, and lighting. Like, just because what I suddenly realized was I was enjoying this film more than the other films. And I asked myself, why is it so that I'm enjoying this film more? That's when I started dwelling into understanding. Then there is this film called Kurudi Punal, which is Drohi in Telugu. Yeah. That is when I thought, these kind of films are the ones which are entertaining me. Like, I think Hit's very first seed was when I watched Drohi. I still watch that film again and again. It's such a great film. There are so many other films that influenced me, but off the top of my head, I can remember these. Yeah.
But it took you quite a few years to actually jump into cinema, isn't it? You studied you were doing your PhD in optometry, working in Sydney, teaching in Sydney. And I remember you telling me that, you used to drive a long distance to go and watch a film. Yeah. And sometimes you would be so unhappy with that film, thinking that why was it written this way or narrated this way. And then you decided that, okay, instead of just complaining, why not I start writing? Yeah. So it
quite a long time for me to just, I guess, make up my mind that I want to be a filmmaker, I guess.
Okay.
But for the fun part of it, I had made short films when I was in my 10th intermediate first year itself. At that time, there was no culture of short films in India. These DSLR cameras also were not around. So how it started was when I was in my 8th, 9th and 10th standard, I used to go to my dad's office. My dad used to be the outdoor unit manager of Prasad Film Laboratories in Prasad Lab. Ramesh Prasad గారి దగ్గర వర్క్ చేసేవాళ్ళు. సో నా స్కూల్ అయిపోయినాక మా డాడీ చేతక్ మీద ఇంటికి తీసుకెళ్ళేవారు నన్ను. సో స్కూల్ నుంచి మా డాడీ ఆఫీస్కి వెళ్ళి వెయిట్ చేసేవాను. మా డాడీ ఆఫీస్ బికాస్ మై స్కూల్ యూస్ టు బి డన్ బై 4 o'clock, 4:30. మై డాడ్స్ ఆఫీస్ యూస్ టు బి డన్ at 6 o'clock. సో దే వాజ్ this 1.5 hour of time. సో వాట్ ఐ యూస్ టు డూ వాజ్ ప్రసాద్ ల్యాబ్లో లాన్లో కూర్చునేవాడిని, ఏమైనా హోంవర్క్ చేసుకుందామని. ఒక పావు గంట 2 నిమిషాలు చేశాక బోర్ కొట్టి ఏటన్నా వెళ్దాంలే అని చెప్పి అలా వెళ్తే డబ్బింగ్ స్వీట్, ఎడిటింగ్ స్వీట్స్ ఉండేవి. I used to go into ఈ నెగిటివ్స్ అడుగుతారు కదా, రూమ్లోకి వెళ్ళిపోయేవాడిని. పీపుల్ న్యూ మీ, దిస్ గై వాజ్ అన్ ఎంతూజియాస్టిక్ కిడ్ విల్ బి రోమింగ్ అరౌండ్ ద ల్యాబ్ అని. సో దే యూస్ లెట్ మీ ఇన్, కూర్చొని రా ఫుటేజ్ చూసేవాడిని. సో షూటింగ్ టైంలో ఎలాంటి ఇన్స్ట్రక్షన్స్ ఇస్తున్నారు, అసలు అక్కడ డైలాగ్ ఎలా ఉంది, దాని మీద డబ్బింగ్ అంటే ఏంటి, ఇవన్నీ కూడా ప్రాసెస్ నేర్చుకున్నా. అంటే సమ్వేర్ ఇట్ స్టార్టెడ్ గోయింగ్ ఇన్, లైక్ యూ లెర్న్ ద క్రాఫ్ట్ ఆఫ్ ఫిల్మ్ మేకింగ్. అక్కడే స్టార్ట్ అయింది నాది. దెన్ వన్స్ ఐ డిడ్ మై intermediate first year, I had a bunch of friends, 5 friends. We suddenly thought, and we had a camcorder on hands. My friend's father was from Dubai and he gifted him a camcorder. So we wanted to do something with it. ఏం చేద్దాం అంటే, ఒక పని చేద్దాంరా, నాకు తెలుసు నేను ఫిల్మ్ చేసేస్తాను, మనం ఒక సినిమా చేద్దాం, ఒక హారర్ సినిమా చేద్దాం అని భయం అని ఒక సినిమా చేస్తాం. అది ఎవరికి భయం ఏది చూస్తే, బట్ భయం దాని పేరు. ఓకే, సో ఇట్స్ బంచ్ ఆఫ్ 5 people who అదేదో ఒక చెట్టుకి ఏదో మేక్ కొడతారు, దాంట్లో దెయ్యం ఉంటుంది, అది యూ నో హౌ ఇట్ ఇస్, రైట్? సో అలా ఒక 5 ట్రబుల్లోకి వెళ్ళిపోయినాక అందులో ఒక దెయ్యం పడితే వాడిని ఎలా కాపాడారు అన్నది కథ. బట్ వీ మేడ్ అ 45-minute ఫిల్మ్. సో దానికి ఒక ఇంటర్వెల్ బ్లాక్ అన్నీ పెట్టి చేసాం. బట్ see, at that time I never knew that I would come into full-time filmmaking అని. But for the fun part, for the fun of it, we did it. అండ్ వీ స్క్రీన్డ్ ఇట్ ఆల్సో, లైక్ ఇంట్లో టీవీలో స్క్రీన్ చేసి ఇంట్లో అపార్ట్మెంట్ వాళ్ళందరినీ పిలిచి చూపించడం అంతా జరిగింది. సో దట్ వాజ్ మై ఫస్ట్ టైం మేకింగ్ అ ఫిల్మ్. దాని తర్వాత హ్యాడ్ ఇంట్రెస్ట్, బట్ ఐ నెవర్ థాట్ ఐల్ బీ ఇంటూ ఫిల్మ్ మేకింగ్ ఫుల్ టైమ్. It took some time for me, some amount of traveling, experiencing cultures and all that. Once the maturity kicks in, then you feel that you can tell stories. I think to be a good director, good storyteller, ఒక ఏజ్ కూడా నెసెసిటీ ఉంది అని ఐ ఫీల్. యూ షుడ్ హావ్ సీన్ ద వరల్డ్ అ లిటిల్, you should have experienced people.
But it required some kind of a mad passion to let go of a steady job in Sydney and take the flight and come here, meet Nani and pitch one story, isn't it? Yeah. Was it like some kind of a thing saying, okay, let me give this a shot at this stage of my life, otherwise I'll never get around to doing it?
Yeah, like I just see, that's how I lived my life all the time. Like, just do what keeps you happy, I guess. That's it. And it was not that I was not happy, I was not unhappy in Sydney. I was leading a very good life. But the biggest fear was, at తిరిగేటప్పటికి 10 ఏళ్ళు అయిపోయింది. And that scared me a lot. And the life was so comfortable there that you wake up in the morning, 9 o'clock, you go to your university, and there are students who love you, and and there is so much of research to do. అట్లా చూసేటప్పటికి 5 అయిపోద్ది, అలా చూసేటప్పుడు ఫ్రైడే అయిపోద్ది, 1 week over. And this cycle, it just took away 10 years of my life. I mean, I made the best use of it. There is no challenge as such, because it's a repeat job, no? That was the most scariest part for me. Then I was like, okay, fine. Now financially I'm stable. I've made good money in the last 10 years. My wife is also earning. So I have a cushion, like, I can always rely on her for about 2-3 years if I have to go and crack something. Swati is very, very supportive when it comes to that. So I expressed it to her that I want to be a filmmaker. I want to give it a shot because I don't want to be this guy who grows up and then thinks,
So once Hit 1 went on floors, and then, Nani and Prashanti decided to produce it, and everything went as you wanted to. Even then, on the sets, each day is going to be different. There are going to be fresh challenges that will come your way.
Yeah.
Though you have the entire thing, you think you've thought out everything, but there'll be new things that will come up. At any point of time, did you feel, why did I leave my job in Sydney and come back here, and why am I doing this?
no, I never thought like that. In fact, it's challenging. As I said, I like challenges.
Okay.
And this information I think will be useful for most upcoming filmmakers who are trying to be filmmakers. When you get down from your car and you walk to your chair to say action for the first time, you have to solve 10 problems.
Okay.
So I think 90% of making a film as a director, like directing a film, is troubleshooting and people management. And just there's a small part of it that requires you to be really creative and make a film. Rest of it is all people management, is what I believe. Like if you can articulate your thoughts really well, and if you can be very clear with your communication of what you want from somebody, I think half of your battle is won there. This is what I learned in the last 4 years of being in the film industry.
Okay. So the most creative part is writing more than directing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think directing, I'll tell you, you're right. Writing is where it needs the maximum creative juices to flow. Once you get onto the floor, depending on what kind of actors you have casted in your film, there could be nightmare on your set, or it could be a cakewalk. There's only like two ways about it, is what I believe. If you have casted the right person who knows the meter of the film and he has good histrionics that he can emote and perform well, you're only going to be looking at whether continuity is maintained, and whether the shots are doing what they're supposed to do, or there is no need of going and extracting performance from somebody. Because actors bring their expertise and talent to the table. That's the kind of talent you want to work with. You don't want to go onto the set and teach somebody how to act. I don't believe in that. So pre-production time lo jarige process a core creative process. I guess once you get onto the set, magic doesn't happen. You just execute. You execute what you had planned in your office, that this is the movie that I want to show to the audience. And I believe certain amount of magic happens during the post-production also.
Okay.
Not during making of the film. Making of the film, the only magic that can happen is the actor bringing something terrific to your scene. And I think if you get good actors, that will happen.
Okay.
Rest of it all, like your technicians, how what is their capability to light up a scene, all that, though you anyways do it in the office only before going. You decide the lighting mode, you decide the shot division and everything, and go to the set now. So it's mostly executing it.
Okay.
So people management is the biggest thing. Troubleshooting and people management is a biggest challenge on the set, is what I believe.
Also while you execute a film like say Hit 1 or Hit 2, you want certain things to be kept under wraps, right? In terms of the story, the plot, especially the climax of the plot and so on. So do you kind of ensure that there are minimal people on sets, and whoever is there have like a confidentiality clause or something worked in?
That's a care we have to take, because in the current scenario where everybody has a smartphone and it just takes one snap to put it out there, you wouldn't even know that it happened. You have to be very careful. So ఏదైనా అలాంటి కాన్ఫిడెన్షియల్ సీన్స్ చేస్తున్నాం అన్నప్పుడు మీరు చెప్పినట్లు we cut down the amount of crew. First thing, we ask the lightmen to light it and go out and wait. We'll call you if we need anything to be changed. Okay. So core team remains, whom we know that whom we trust, the most trustworthy people will remain at the shot. ఇంకా ప్రొడక్షన్ బాయ్స్ వీళ్ళందరూ బయటికి పంపించేస్తాం. They'll all be waiting somewhere else. They wouldn't know what we are shooting. And the other thing is no cell phones on the set is the other rule that we follow. Whenever we are shooting something like that, we make sure that we keep a box out there. We keep one person responsible. They'll go put their mobiles there and get in.
But despite all these kind of precautions that you took, even before Hit 2 hit the theatres, about 3-4 days before that, everybody knew who was likely to be the protagonist of Hit 3, right? So are certain things unavoidable?
You can't. I think these days only కొన్ని విషయాలే మీరు ఆపగలుగుతారు. అంటే ఎంత ట్రై చేసినా, బికాజ్ కాంటాక్ట్స్ నుంచి పిఆర్లు there's so much of network out there. ఆర్టికల్స్ వచ్చేస్తాయి మీరు ఎంత అనుకున్నా. ఎందుకంటే ఎప్పుడో ఒక యాక్టర్ని అప్రోచ్ అవుతాము, అడిగినప్పుడు వాళ్ళ దగ్గర ఉన్న అక్కడ పనిచేసే వాళ్ళు మేనేజర్లు, సో మెనీ పీపుల్ అరౌండ్, సో ది వర్డ్ విల్ గెట్ అవుట్. బట్ గుడ్ థింగ్ ఏంటంటే ఎంత రియల్ న్యూస్లు ఎన్ని వస్తున్నాయో అన్ని స్పెక్యులేషన్లు కూడా వస్తాయి కాబట్టి అది నిజమా కాదా అన్న ఒక చిన్న దాంట్లోనే ఉండిపోతారు జనాలు. కానీ ఇది కన్ఫర్మ్ న్యూస్ అనేది అంటిల్ వీ అనౌన్స్ ఇట్ పీపుల్ వోంట్ నో ఇట్. నో. సో ఐ థింక్ ఇట్స్ బికమ్ ద వే ఆఫ్ బీయింగ్ ఇన్ దిస్ వరల్డ్ ఆఫ్ మేకింగ్ ఫిల్మ్స్. ఇస్ ద వర్డ్ విల్ గెట్ అవుట్ దేర్. ఇప్పుడు సింపుల్ ఎగ్జాంపులే, మేము సైంధవ్ ఫిలింకి నవాజుద్దీన్ సిద్దికి అనుకున్నాము. కెప్ట్ ఇట్ అండర్ ర్యాప్స్, అదొక ఎక్సైట్మెంట్తో ఇవ్వాలి. బట్ ఇట్ వెంట్ అవుట్. ఇట్స్ బౌండ్ టు లైక్ యూ కాంట్ కంట్రోల్ ఇట్ బియాండ్ ఎ సర్టన్ పాయింట్. అఫీషియల్గా మనం వెళ్ళి మాట్లాడి యాక్టర్కి నచ్చిన తర్వాత ఆయన ఎవరితోనో ఎక్సైట్ అయ్యి షేర్ చేయడం, నేను ఎవరితోనో ఎక్సైట్ అయ్యి షేర్ చేయడం, ఇలాంటిది ఉంటుంది కదా. వాళ్ళు అట్లా వెళ్ళిపోద్ది, ఎంత అనుకున్నది ఆగదు.
So before even we see Hit 3, you're taking a short break from it. You're directing Saindhav with Venkatesh in a fictitious port city, right?
Yes, yeah.
So was this also a story that you had written already and then you fleshed it out?
No. This story found me during COVID lockdown actually. I mean glimpse వదిలే కాబట్టి స్టోరీ ఏంటన్నది చాలా మందికి తెలుసు. ఇట్స్ అబౌట్ దిస్ డిజీజ్ కాల్డ్ స్పైనల్ మస్క్యులర్ అట్రోఫీ అన్న ఒక డిజీజ్ గురించి స్టోరీ అంతా. దానికి సంబంధించిన ఒక మెడిసిన్ ఓనాసెమ్నోజిన్ అబెపార్వోవైక్ అని ఒక డ్రగ్. అది దాని ద కాస్ట్ ఆఫ్ దట్ మెడిసిన్ ఇస్ 17 crores. సో ద స్టోరీ రివాల్వ్స్ అరౌండ్ దిస్ మెడిసిన్. సో దిస్ స్టోరీ ఫౌండ్ మీ డ్యూరింగ్ కోవిడ్ లాక్డౌన్ బికాస్ దేర్ వాజ్ ఎ స్మాల్ బాయ్ హూ నాక్డ్ ఆన్ మై డోర్ విత్ హిస్ పేరెంట్స్ అండ్ హీ వాజ్ నాట్ వెల్. సో చారిటీ గురించి వచ్చారు. సో I was ready to chip in and all, but then they said, sir, you'll have to tweet about this and ask the other celebrities also if you can connect. And why, what's happening? And then they told me that this drug is like 17 crores and I was shocked. So I went back and started researching on this disease. I understood what it is. There are so many problems associated with this treatment modality in our country. So I thought it will be a nice story to tell because it will give, I felt it will give voice to a bunch of people who don't have a voice right now. Like, these parents, you know, they are in a literally helpless stage only, you know, because kids with spinal muscular atrophy, they are not making it out. You know, diagnosis kuda sariga jaragatla kontamandiki. Okay. So I think this movie will speak about that problem. So దాన్ని ఒక ఎంటర్టైనింగ్ వేలో చెప్తున్నా. అంటే ఎంటర్టైనింగ్ మీనింగ్ ఇన్ అ వెరీ ఇంటెన్స్ ఎన్వైరన్మెంట్ లో.
So are we looking at a crime drama?
I won't say anything more than that.
Okay. Because it looks like a very gritty kind of a city.
It is a gritty city. It's a gritty city.
When I watched Hit 2, in fact I rewatched it before Hit 2 released, Hit 1. Okay, so the kind of suspect play that was over there, and then because you have a protagonist who is like, one side is his trauma and everything, but the other side, he is somebody who, if he sees somebody, he knows where that guy is coming from, you know, what else does he do, and he's almost like a mini Sherlock Holmes kind of a personality, right?
Yeah.
So in some way, did you also grow up reading books, crime dramas, thriller?
Oh yeah, books I started reading after I graduated. Until then I didn't have the habit of reading books. Optometry graduation అయిపోయిన తర్వాత ఇక్కడ క్లినిక్స్, I was working as a clinician here as an optometrist for a period of 5 years. So in a day I used to see about 7-8 patients, and each consultation used to last for about half an hour, 45 minutes, maximum 1 hour. So in a day's work I used to have 3-4 hours of good time in the clinic where I had nothing to do. So I started reading books then. సో అదే షెర్లాక్ హోమ్స్ ఇవన్నీ కూడా సార్, ఆర్థర్ కానన్ డాయిల్ అండ్ ఆల్, ఐ రెడ్ ద వర్క్ ఈవెన్ బిఫోర్ ఐ వాచ్ ద కాంటెంట్ ఆన్ ద స్క్రీన్. అండ్ నేను అంటే దిస్ ఐ డోంట్ నో, ఐ ఫీల్ వెరీ ashamed to say this, but I don't watch so much content. Most of my inspiration comes from books.
It looks like that because the suspect play reminded me of a few Agatha Christie novels as well.
Yeah.
And the way the second one was also structured, you have a prologue.
Correct.
And then you want people to forget it and then go back to it during the climax.
And there will be an epilogue as well, like, you know, so it's a very book format, but except that I don't divide it into chapters and stuff, but there is definitely a prologue and an epilogue for my films. Like even if you see Hit 1 also, the prologue of the prologue is when he enters into an abandoned shed and he sees somebody burning, and I stop it there and I start the story somewhere else. And the epilogue is, you know, him being sorry about what had happened, and you know, there's a nice closure to whatever the film was about. So yeah, most of my inspiration comes from books. And just not just detective novels or just not crime novels. I read a lot of Jhumpa Lahiri, I read Arundhati Roy's, and lot of literature fiction, classic fiction books also I read.
Okay.
Just for an exercise of, if I love a character and I do this exercise of how would it be if I take this character and put him in a scenario, what story would unfold. Exercises like that I like to do. So నాకు ఎక్కువ కంటెంట్ చూడకపోవడం మూలన కూడా అయి ఉండొచ్చు. మోర్ లైక్ అ బ్లాంక్ షీట్, లైక్ I like to watch certain kind of content and I try to replicate that when I make a film also.
Okay. So to sum it up, you said you want your films to have your signature, right? As you keep making bigger and bigger films, inevitably would you try and keep that signature in terms of whatever you wanted to?
For sure, I think that's I think there is no satisfaction of making a film if it doesn't have a signature on, like, I believe in that. And I think longevity point of view, I think I'll be relevant for another few years because of the growing technology, and the kind of space the younger generation is going into. I don't think one can stay relevant with the next generation for more than a few years. ఇంతకు ముందు జనరేషన్ గ్యాప్ అంటే 10-15 ఏళ్ళు, ఇప్పుడు జనరేషన్ గ్యాప్ అంటే 5-6 ఇయర్స్కి వచ్చేస్తుంది. సో ఐ థింక్ యాజ్ అ ఫిల్మ్ మేకర్ డౌన్ ద లైన్ ఐ విల్ బికమ్ irrelevant at one point in time. Until then I want to make films that I am happy with and something that will have my signature on it. The moment I start feeling that I'm irrelevant and my signature is not there in an attempt to cater to the next generation, I don't know, that will be the time I'll gracefully.
There are exceptions, isn't it? There are a few exceptions. I mean, Mani Ratnam is relevant now after 40 years in cinema, and we still...
Times have changed, no, Sangeetha. Okay. Times have changed a lot. Like in the last 10 years itself, it has changed so much. So yeah, nowadays I guess a filmmaker only has a certain period of time where he can be relevant. After that, extreme amount of hard work is necessary. Like what you said, one will have to go down and travel, interact with the...
So you reinvent yourself.
You have to reinvent yourself. Yeah. You have a certain existing like paradigm of knowledge, and you can't rely on that forever, because that knowledge will become irrelevant in a shorter span of time now than what it used to be before. So I think, yeah, the day when I feel I'm not relevant, I'll stop making movies and I'll nicely write the aim is to be somewhere in New Zealand. I have my own farm, sheep, and I'll be writing books that I love. And if a young filmmaker somewhere from India knocks on my door and says, "Anna, katha bagundi nenu teeskuntanante teeskoni." That's where I see myself. Yeah.
But I hope that happens at a much later stage, and you treat us to more films.
Yeah, we'll see. But I mean, as I said, as long as I'm relevant, I'm here to stay, and I'll keep working hard to make good films. The day when I realize that I'm not relevant anymore, it's happy exit.
Okay. Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you. All the best for Saindhav.
Yes, thank you, Sangeetha.
Thank you. Thanks, Sailesh.